2022 is shaping up to be one of the biggest years for tabletop role-playing releases yet. There's a bevy of big releases set to land this year, many of which have been hotly anticipated for a good while now. Though licensed RPGs have been dominating Kickstarter and the retail market recently, with 2022 certainly being no exception, we also wanted to highlight many of the original upcoming RPGs set to hit store shelves, or in many cases backers' hands, over the next 12 months. From adaptations of beloved cartoon series and films to cyberpunk-inspired affairs from talented creators, there's undoubtedly an RPG for everyone coming out in 2022. It's incredibly exciting to see the kind of licenses being chosen for role-playing games alongside the unique mechanics being implemented in the original titles. We're going to be seeing perhaps one of the most unusual years for RPG releases that we've ever witnessed, which only means that the medium is set to be pushed that much further. So, I'm Wheels, and this is a list of all the best and most brilliant tabletop role-playing games coming out over 2022. The idea of role-playing in the world of Avatar: The Last Airbender and The Legend of Korra sounds great, doesn't it? And as it turns out, we're far from the only people to feel that way, as the upcoming RPG based on the animated series Avatar Legends quickly became the highest funded tabletop RPG of all time on Kickstarter last summer. Avatar Legends brings the teenage drama and element-bending action of both Atla and Korra to the tabletop in fateful fashion. Using the Powered by the Apocalypse system, as also seen in publisher Magpie Games' role-playing adaptation of board game Root, to capture the feeling of controlling earth, water, fire and air, while characters attempt to also maintain personal balance in their emotions and philosophies. The upcoming RPG doesn't just stick to the time frame seen in the TV shows, with the option to play before, during or after the 100-Year War that precedes the original series, as well as the modernized future of Korra's era. Avatar Legends' full rulebook will see a release this summer following a delay from its planned release in February. Before then, you can get an early taste of the game and explore the 4 nations through its free quick start. Wander Home was one of the most delightful RPG surprises of last year, serving up a wholesome slice of pastoral fantasy in its pacifist paradise of hard-working animals. The next upcoming RPG from Wander Home designer Jay Dragon, joined here by co-creator M. Vaselek, looks to offer up another whimsical wonder. Like Wander Home, Yazeba's Bed and Breakfast is a GM-less RPG that veers away from the combat of many traditional fantasy RPGs as it trades D&D for B&B. Players control permanent residents of the titular guest house who interact with their fellow long-term inhabitants and NPC guests. Both the players' characters and visitors are looking for something, inviting players to discover more about each individual and the world over the course of each session and the game's ongoing campaign. Think the bathhouse staffing of Studio Ghibli classic Spirited Away meets the friendly neighborhood interactions of Animal Crossing, and you're somewhere close. Marking Yazeba's departure from the familiar structure of conventional role-playing games is its deliberately episodic format, inspired by series such as Moomins and Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends. Each tailor-made chapter follows a particular inhabitant of the bed and breakfast, introducing variations on the game's central gameplay to reflect a distinct mood. In practice, the game works like a mix of tabletop RPG and legacy board game, with players able to unlock new guests and chapters tracked via sticker mementos as they play through earlier chapters. The end result is a unique journal of the group's time together and their experiences with the varied visitors to the bed and breakfast. Yazeba's Bed and Breakfast already stands out as one of the most original upcoming RPGs released in 2022, and the promise of more secrets and surprises to discover as we play through has us excited to nestle into a comfy chair, slip in a warm cup of coffee, and crack open its pages. If you'd asked me which board game series would be getting its own tabletop role-playing spin-off game, the Dungeon Fighter franchise wouldn't exactly be my first guess. A series of excellent dexterity games that have players venturing through dangerous locales as a party of classic fantasy archetypes, whose abilities are triggered via players successfully hitting a target using a set of dice. Dungeon Fighter always occupied its own weird and wonderful place in the tabletop industry, but wasn't exactly the pinnacle of world building and characterization. However, One More Quest, the spin-off RPG set in the same world as Dungeon Fighter, may just be exactly what the role-playing doctor ordered. Whilst the setting isn't anything to write home about, though there is some fun Monty Python-esque humour in there, the mechanics behind One More Quest certainly help it to stand apart from its role-playing contemporaries. Rather than rolling dice, whenever players want their characters to perform an action, they must attempt to hit a bullseye target using a die. The closer a player's die lands to the target, the better the resulting action will be. Similarly to the board game series the RPG spin-off is based on, players may be given a ridiculous handicap when performing their throw, depending on the situation their character finds themselves in. For example, should a player character be attempting to avoid another character's notice, the player will need to throw their die from underneath the table. Applying fun and unique mechanics to the basic role-playing structure may ensure that One More Quest stands out from the crowd. Banana-chan and Senfeng Lim became the indie RPG designers of the moment in 2021 with the Kickstarter for Jiangshi Blood in the Banquet Hall. Their RPG puts players in the roles of a Chinese-American family looking to run a restaurant business by day and fend off the legendary hopping vampires by night. The designers are back in 2022 with another brilliantly inventive role-playing game that combines player-driven storytelling with highly original gameplay mechanics. This time, players should prepare to grab a pen and paper. Exquisite Crime blends together a horror-tinged murder mystery in need of solving with the traditional drawing game Exquisite Corpse, in which players collaboratively draw a person without seeing their fellow artists' contributions, leading to often surreal creations. Players draw vision cards to inspire details about their suspect, victim, location of the crime, and witnesses before describing what they see to another player who draws their interpretation. The process, which recalls deduction board games such as Dixit and Mysterium, only in reverse, is repeated by each player to gradually form the complete depiction of the crime, which is revealed to the group. Players also have the opportunity to create their detectives investigating each mystery using Xenocards, repurposed from the debunked 1930s test for extrasensory abilities in an inventive character creation process. Exquisite Crime looks set to continue Chan and Feng Lim's penchant for groundbreaking role-playing and storytelling established in Jiangshi and take it in a brand new direction. With its blend of surrealist art creation, player-driven mystery generation, and the comedy horror of unleashing your friend's unconscious inspiration, it promises to be something very special. Released in 2020, Mork Borg immediately captured the attention of role-playing game enthusiasts across the industry and community. With its striking art style, dark themes, and unusual layout, Mork Borg was exceptionally hard to ignore. Several ENnie Awards later, which are essentially the highest award an RPG can win, and the heavy metal-inspired role-playing game is already getting its first spin-off in the form of Cyborg, whose title is both the most obvious and absolutely genius creative choice ever made, maybe? Taking place in a cyberpunk setting where the consequences of uncontrolled capitalism have fully come home to roost, Cyborg sees players becoming misfits, fighting back against the corporate systems and policing departments seeking to oppress the people. While Cyborg will feature many of the kinds of topics that we're used to, cyberpunk narratives dealing with like capitalism, transhumanism, and technology, it's bound to do it in a way that we've likely never seen before if Mork Borg is anything to go by. Having more RPGs be inspired by genres of music is a fantastic thing because it's a concept that makes so much sense considering how immersive music can make role-playing. Cyborg will be taking inspiration from the industrial and underground hip-hop music of the 1990s, which I personally may have little to no knowledge of, but that doesn't mean I'm not excited by the prospect. Now, when it comes to animated series with buckets of style, character, and action, few shots match the jazzy sci-fi universe of 90s anime Cowboy Bebop. Watanabe's anthology of bounty hunters scouting the solar system for their next paycheck, while also trying to outrun their own past, has been lavished with praise over the last 2 decades and got on to inspire countless other series, stories, and games. Even so, it was still a surprise to hear the announcement of an upcoming RPG based on Cowboy Bebop when it landed last year, ahead of its planned Kickstarter and release in 2022. Even more surprising is the fact that fans will be able to continue the adventures of Spike, Jet, Faye and Ed by role-playing as the characters from the series. In what may be considered good news, the Cowboy Bebop RPG will stick to the original series, without delving into like the movie spin-off or the short-lived live-action Netflix remake. While yet another licensed RPG based on a beloved franchise may have you rolling your eyes, you're certainly not alone in being skeptical, because I am too. The upcoming RPG's creators have said that it will go beyond just being another D&D reskin, with the promise that the gameplay will have a jazzy feel to suit the series' musical energy. Driving things will be a modified version of the Not the End, the acclaimed RPG from Italian designer studio Fumble GDR, built on a hex grid trait system and multicolored dice. We'll discover what else Cowboy Bebop the role-playing game has in store when it launches on Kickstarter in the first half of 2022. Could it be the next massive animation adaptation after Avatar? We'll have to find out. What do you get if you combine a pair of acclaimed comic creators with a beloved group of indie RPG designers? You get Die RPG, a tabletop RPG based on the tabletop RPG based on the comic book about a tabletop RPG. Stay with me on this. Die RPG adapts the comic book by writer Kieran Gillen and artist Stephanie Hans, which tells the Jumanji-like tale of a group of friends who are sucked into a fantasy world made real of a Dungeons & Dragons-esque tabletop role-playing game. They emerge 2 years later, traumatized and unable to tell the wider world of their ordeal, only to venture back into the meta world comprised of a 20-sided planet in the shape of a D20 decades later. Having already adapted Die into a tabletop RPG, freely available as a work-in-progress version for a few years, Gillen and Hans have now joined forces with indie role-playing darlings Rowan, Rook and Descartes to publish an official Die RPG. The full release will clean up Gillen's existing beta rule set, now dubbed Die Core, introduce support for longer campaigns and expand the overall gameplay and lore offering. Originally scheduled to launch on Kickstarter last autumn, the Die RPG campaign slipped into 2022 due to the ongoing worldwide paper shortage and shipping crisis. The upcoming RPG is now expected to land sometime this spring, with its fascinating source material and the combined acclaim and talent of its creator supergroup set to make it one of the most promising upcoming RPGs of the next 12 months. For fans of Naughty's classic sports comedy Bring It On, Fight with Spirit is a TTRPG that looks to help games masters and players tell their own stories about underdog basketball teams overcoming the odds, or ice hockey players setting aside their differences to band together and win the big tournament. What's so great about Fight with Spirit is that it seems to be setting out to pay as much attention to the drama side of things as much as the sports. Depending on the ambitions, traits, and type of team that the players choose from, they'll have their own unique journey through the trials and tribulations of competitive sporting. In Fight with Spirit, players won't just be forming bonds and relationships with their fellow teammates, but will also have the opportunity to establish relationships, even romantic ones, with characters from rival teams as well, which is sure to make for some pretty engaging storylines. The creators behind Fight with Spirit have already proven their ability to make some brilliant RPGs, such as the Jane Austen-inspired Good Society, but the premise alone should be enough to get people interested in Fight with Spirit as a whole. It kind of feels like Flabbergasted was designed specifically for Alex Meehan. When she was younger, Meehan would watch a show called Jeeves and Wooster with her mum, before, of course, becoming our lovely Dicebreaker staff writer. And if that was ever made into a role-playing game, it would be Flabbergasted. In this TTRPG, players become aspiring members of the upper classes of the early 20th century. But rather than feeling yucky and disingenuous, like an RPG centered around the wealthy might feel, it comes across as self-aware and quite charming. Instead of having players live fantasy lives in the luxuries of wealth, Flabbergasted depicts the world of rich socialites as being utterly ridiculous and irresistibly mockable. Players are encouraged to create characters who do not fit in with the upper classes or otherwise fully embody the worst traits of the bright young things. Even though the focus of Flabbergasted is on the wealthy, players are allowed to make characters from a variety of classes, thereby making the perfect setup for classic British comedy. After all, the UK is pretty obsessed with class. Players can expect to encounter various ludicrous scenarios across the fictional city of Peccadillo, with some characters wanting to avoid embarrassment as much as possible and others actively seeking it out. It is fantastic to see more role-playing games being made that aren't wholly centered around combat. Flabbergasted is the kind of TTRPG that our eccentric Alex Meehan was born to play, and one that I cannot wait to hear her devise an accent for. There are a lot of licensed role-playing games set to be released in 2022, but aside from the already hotly anticipated Avatar RPG, the Blade Runner RPG might be one most people are excited about. Both the original Blade Runner and its amazing sequel Blade Runner 2049 are some of my favourite films of all time, so it's definitely a license that I'm passionate about. The film series could make for an amazing setting for a role-playing game purely on account of the way that the initial film treats its world and environments. But there's an even more exciting reason than that. Firstly, the publisher, Free League Publishing, has already proven that it can create fantastic and faithful RPG adaptations of Scott's film with the Alien RPG, which accurately translates the tense atmosphere of the 1979 horror masterpiece. Secondly, the game's setting doesn't seem to be entirely piggybacking off the film, as the RPG is set to take place in the time between the first and second movies. This means that Free League is, well, free to establish aspects of the setting that we might not have seen before and make its own creative mark. Whilst players will be Blade Runners, which are the policing force tasked with finding and destroying illegal androids, there's still so much about the premise for games masters and players to explore narratively, emotionally, and morally. The artwork revealed for the Blade Runner RPG is already so evocative of the spirit of the films, and the murky time frame between the original Blade Runner and 2049 offers plenty of opportunities for GMs and players to tell their own narratives, which are sure to stay true to many of the amazing themes that the franchise is known for, from the corruption of the police force to the nature of humanity itself. So there you have it, 10 amazing new TTRPGs making their way to shelves and players' hands in the year of 2022. Let us know what RPGs you're most excited about this year in the comments below, and whilst you're scrolling down, why not do us a favour and hit the like and subscribe buttons so you can see more of us here on Dicebreaker. You can also click the bell icon to get notified whenever we put a new video live. If you're passionate about all things tabletop, then you should definitely mosey on over to our home and hearth on Dicebreaker.com, where we've got articles on almost anything that you can imagine that's played over a table with friends. Thanks so much for watching this video, and most importantly, have a lovely day.